Hi, Lisa Lloyd here. I've decided to put together some tutorials on how to invent and license your inventions, and I've been doing it for about 22 years. I've had really high highs and really low lows. My products have done a little over 30 million in retail sales, and I get asked frequently what my story is, what my background is, and of course how to do what I've done. So I figured I'd start here with just sharing a little bit about my story, and when we're done, I'm going to invite you to share some of your questions with me, as well as your inventions if you'd like me to show them on YouTube and give you my advice right here. So this started for me about 22 years ago. I had an idea for the French twister because I worked at the CBS affiliate in Tucson, Arizona, and my hair was really short. I'd been in the Navy and it was growing out, and so I wore it up in a French twist all of the time. And the girls at work would always ask me how I did it. Early 90s, this was a really big deal. It was a cool style. So I went to work at cutting away barrettes and putting things back together until I came up with something that looked like this. Actually, this is the original. It's really, really hard to see. It had foam on it originally. It's a mess now, but it's just a hanger. And I folded it in half and I put the foam on it and I put my hair back in a ponytail and slid it in there. And then when I rolled it up against my head, I had a French twist. So I thought, my goodness, I think I'm onto something. So from there, I started looking for ways to manufacture it, and I could not figure out how to create metal. I kept finding in the yellow pages things for manufacturers that were made out of plastic, but that didn't do me a lot of good. So I went back to the drawing board, and one of the original ideas, I'm looking in my bag of goodies here, I don't think I have it with me right now, but I took a banana clip and I cut it up and put it back together, and I rolled that up, and the banana clip worked. So I thought, well, I think I can make this out of plastic instead. So this is actually one of the very first ones that came off of the mold. It doesn't even work because when we first got it back, the lip up here wouldn't close. It just kept coming open too easy. But the concept worked, and it told me what I needed to know, that we were on the right track. So I spoke with my manufacturer. I pitched him on the idea, had a thorough business plan, and he became a partner with me. And we went back to the drawing board and we manufactured several until we came up with the styles that would work. Ultimately, I packaged them in this really bad packaging with these bobby pins. And as you can see, it was just a piece of paper that we slipped it through because I couldn't afford any real packaging. I had a friend of mine that I graduated high school with that was taking art classes or at the Art Institute. And so I took some photographs and he turned them into line drawings, which really helped save me a ton of money. And then I put them together 12 at a time in little baskets like this, where we then went into stores. Yeah, cheesy, right? And sold them. They were retailing for $20, so we sold them for $10 a piece, so $120 for a little basket like this to put it into the salons and small boutiques around Tucson. But they loved it. And we found that the people who demonstrated it were the ones that were getting the most sales, and they kept coming back to us for more and getting the reorders. The challenge that I had with the product was that if it wasn't being demonstrated, people didn't know what it was, they didn't know how to put it in their hair. And around the same time, another woman came out with a product called the Hairdini, Barbara Stakowski, I believe, and it was a beautiful product. It had so much potential. She'd actually thought through some things, including doing it out of metal, so it opened and closed. And it did more than one style. So she was on television, and I was devastated because she came out with this thing and it kicked my butt. So I thought, well, the only way to get this going any better than that is going to be to license it. My mother and I had purchased a book called Patent It Yourself by David Pressman. And so in the back of the book, there were a bunch of inventors clubs as well as information about licensing. And we ended up calling on Goody and Scunsy and Conair, and originally got a deal going with Goody, which was very exciting. In the process of negotiating with them, unfortunately, they just kind of fell off. When I finally got the woman back on the phone to tell me where she had disappeared to, she said that Goody had been sold to Newell Rubbermaid and was not interested in pursuing anything at that time because she didn't know if she was still going to have a job. To which, of course, I replied, well, then we better hurry up and close the deal so that I can be done before you lose your job, which she didn't find humorous at all, but that's okay. Needless to say, that went sideways. And again, I was devastated. At the time, I was engaged to be married and in the process of moving, so I kind of put it on the table for a little bit and was focused on some personal things in my life. And my mom calls me one day and she says, I'm at Walmart and I see this, I don't know what it's called, skunky or scrunchy or I don't know, but they've got a few products here and we haven't approached them. Are you interested? So I said, of course. So she makes the phone call. The owner of the company happened to get on the phone because it was around Christmas time and he was the only one in the office. And he said, here's my FedEx number. Go ahead and send me the information. So I put the package together, got it right off to him. And he followed up the next day with, I love this. Who are you talking to? I'm interested. So we ended up negotiating, and it was actually a really great time for me because I was 23 years old and I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. And so one of the things he asked me is, well, what are you looking for? And I said, well, I'm interested in licensing. What do you typically do with your licenses? And he said, well, usually there's a royalty. What's the royalty rate? And again, I'm not sure what's your typical royalty rate. And so we negotiated that amount. Then we talked about minimums and what it would take. And my question to him was, well, how many units do you think you can sell per year? And let's set the minimum standard based on what you're estimating in sales to be fair to both of us. And I was satisfied with that number. So we put our minimums in place. And then we negotiated the advance. And in the advance, which I had read in the book, this is typically against future royalties just at the time of executing the agreement so that you have a little bit of good faith money, so to speak. So we put that together, or we discussed that, and he said, well, how much do you want? I said, I'm not really sure. Again, I've not done this before. What do you normally do? And he said, well, how much have you put into it? So of course by the way, in my pajamas, pacing in my apartment, talking to him on the phone, terrified the whole time at 23 years old. What else am I getting? Right? I think at that point I was 24. Um, and he said, what have you put into it? And I did the math and I came up with about 20,000. So I said, well, we've put about $20,000 into it. And he said, okay, done. I'm like, shoot, I should have asked for more money. So I had my first advance for $20,000 within a week, a fully executed agreement that was good for the next 20 years, and a very nice royalty that began just about 6 months later once they were in production and rolled out, and the advanced was recovered by them. So that was my first product, and I remember getting that first check. I still have photocopies of it, that one as well as one from Newell Rubbermaid, just because it was more money. That 20,000 was more than I made an entire year working at CBS. So as a single mom, that was a phenomenal experience for me, and I knew I was onto something. I knew I wanted to keep doing this. So inventing is not really a 9 to 5 job. You can't sit down and say, oh, I'm going to invent something today and just have it all figured out. So instead, the next step for me was my mother and I, again, my mother had stood by me. She was totally supportive financially. She invested. She was very encouraging. So together we started the Inventors Association of Arizona. And through that, I learned a lot because we had wonderful speakers come in. I had no idea what I was doing, right or wrong for that matter. I was just really fortunate, I felt. Um, and I grew and learned more and continued as I had ideas to manufacture at least a prototype and get patents and ultimately license those. The French Twister being the first one. Over the following 15 years, I did a total of 7 inventions with a total of 10 patents on them that have done over 30 million in retail sales and have been very, very lucrative for me. In addition to that, I've had the privilege of speaking. I've had the privilege of being on some amazing television programs like Dr. Phil and Donnie Deutsch, and Dr. Phil for my inventions, not my twitches. For the Ananda Lewis Show, which was a program that was produced by Oprah also. And I wrote a regular column for the Arizona Phoenix Republic on business and innovation specifically. And I've had incredible opportunities to grow my business through speaking engagements and consulting and licensing other people's inventions as well as my own.